All right, we're at the top of the hour, folks. I want to thank everyone for joining us for this webinar. Let me take a minute and introduce myself. I'm John Tribble, and I serve as co-chair for the Toward One Wisconsin conference this year. And I'm also privileged to serve as Vice President, Chief Diversity Officer at Church Mutual Insurance Company. And you've probably heard of Church Mutual as well. But a little bit about the webinar before I introduce the panelists. This is a free webinar that's sponsored by Church Mutual Insurance Company, the Wisconsin Institute for Public Policy and Service, and some of you may know that it's sometimes called WIPPS, and the 2024 Toward One Wisconsin Conference on Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. And that conference is taking place May 7th and 8th in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. This panel discussion will give you a glimpse into the types of conversations that will be taking place next month during the conference. And wherever you are on your diversity, equity, inclusion journey, there will be something for you at the Toward One Wisconsin conference. Whether you're just starting out or you're overwhelmed or you're a leading advocate in your community, this conference will provide best practices, insights, and implementation tools to help you take the next steps. Attendees will have the opportunity to learn about and discuss the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how to move from talk to action. So some people would say from words to deeds. So it's going to be an exciting time. I also want to mention to you that this webinar will be recorded, and I'm told that it may be available as early as this evening, but certainly probably by tomorrow. So without further ado, I want to take a moment and introduce our brilliant lineup of panelists, and then you'll hear from them very soon. The first person I'll introduce is Erickajoy Daniels. She's president and CEO of UW-I coaching and consulting firm. So welcome, Erickajoy, to the webinar. Also want to introduce one of my bosses, and that's none other than Mr. Alan Ogilvie. He's president and CEO of Church Mutual Insurance Company, and it's a privilege, Alan, to have you with us as well today. And then also Dr. Maysee Herr. She's the CEO of the Hmong, Wisconsin Chamber of Commerce, and it's always good to have you as well, Dr. Herr. And then Dr. Corey King is the chancellor of University of Wisconsin Whitewater. And so again, we've got a great lineup of folks, and I would ask each panelist, and we can even go in the same order that we did before, just share any other information you want to about yourself. And then the first question that we had listed for everybody to answer is, how has diversity and inclusion helped your organization? Again, so just take 10, 15 seconds, maybe 30 seconds, if you will, and share whatever other information you want to about yourself. And I can help you. I can repeat the question too, again, if you need me to do that. But the question is, how has diversity and inclusion helped your organization? And as Erickajoy is thinking about what she's going to say, I want to mention to the audience that we will be monitoring the Q&A function. And so if you have a question, we're not going to wait all the way to the end to field all the questions. We're going to try to do it as much in real time as we can. So again, this webinar is for you, and we'd love to have your interaction. So Erickajoy, I'll turn it over to you to share any other information about yourself and then answer that first question.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, John. And thank you, Alan, for just the invitation. And I'm so excited to be amongst such a dynamic panel. I feel like I want to get a pen out myself, and I know I'm going to get some nuggets and lessons and learning. I have a little bit of a eclectic career background. And though I'm responsible now in a very independent place, but I think in growing capability and capacity in others through a firm, I think I want to answer this question from a context of how I'm helping others see the value of diversity, equity, inclusion. And another key role, I currently serve as the president of the Milwaukee Athletic Club, which is historic. To talk about diversity, historic role. No, there's never had been a person of color in that role since 1882. So from a business standpoint, diversity and equity inclusion has enabled the Milwaukee Athletic Club in its growth initiatives, plans, and targets. Recognizing the history of social clubs have been pretty narrow in demographic, targets and membership and composition, but yet leadership there saw the need and the compelling urgency to shift and to understand what was growing and going on in the marketplace and in our community. And so building it right into those business goals and drivers, the representation growth has been phenomenal, which then goes right to the bottom line, right? It's still a business. It's also enabled them to shape a different kind of culture and an impact in the community. So just just an early start of recognizing, even in my previous roles, helping leaders see that diversity and inclusion isn't like an independent plan, but they are solutions. There are ways to look at solutioning around gaps and issues and challenges in organizations.
Excellent. So what you're saying, and if I summarized it, is that um, it was a groundbreaking moment for you to ascend to your, being the leader there at the athletic club, and then you've seen that D&I work, diversity, equity, and inclusion, is really impacting the bottom line in ways that people can see and feel and benefit from. So that's
Absolutely.
all right. Excellent. Excellent. Alan, we'll pivot to you. Alan Ogilvie is the president and CEO of Church Mutual. And I'll turn it over to you, Alan, to share any other information that you want to about yourself, and then answer that first question about how has D&I helped your organization?
Sure. Well, good afternoon, John, and it's an honor to be here with this group. And certainly, Church Mutual feels very fortunate to be able to support efforts like this. To the question, how has diversity and inclusion helped our organization? It helped us immensely. Our organization, whether it's our employees or the customers we serve, are very diverse. So I look at it as a very basic thing that we can make better decisions about serving our customers the more that we understand the diversity of thought, life experiences, backgrounds that different people have. I mean, again, we operate on a national basis from rural communities to urban communities. We serve, as you'd expect, a lot of religious institutions, but very diverse in their backgrounds. And for me, so many things start with first, understand, because if we can understand the differences, that allows us to not only do the things that we think are morally and ethically right, but also, to Erickajoy's comment about it's also good business. It allows us to make better decisions in our business to make sure we're serving the needs of our customers. Because at the end of the day, that's our only real reason for existence.
Excellent. Excellent. Another nugget. So 2 in a row. Nuggets are coming out. And if I summarized, Alan was saying about understanding our customer base, being able to make better decisions. And it's certainly, for those that are in a for-profit mode, which a lot of companies, aside from nonprofits, it really goes right to the bottom line. So again, I want to remind everybody that the Q&A function is open, so you can feel free to ask a question. But as an audience participant, as you're thinking about that, we're going to pivot to Dr. Herr to introduce herself and then answer that first question about how has diversity and inclusion helped your organization. So Dr. Herr, take it away.
Thank you, John. I'm going to start off by saying, our organization is unique in that it came out of, or was created as a result of knowing that there are other organizations that help small businesses, for example, that weren't really catering to those who come from diverse backgrounds. And so as a result, the Hmong Wisconsin Chamber came to be so that we can provide culturally adaptive services, for example, to folks who may need it, that may not have been able to get those types of resources and that sort of support from others. So talking about that, then we, in terms of hiring internally, we want to make sure we're very intentional, inherently intentional about making sure we have those who are have the ability, culturally competent, have the ability to be culturally adaptive, and not necessarily that they have to be just someone, for example, that looks like me, but is willing and able to work with people of all different backgrounds. I will also say it expands beyond just our organization. We are very mindful about making sure that we're working with other organizations so we can reach other folks who need the support that we can provide also.
Great. And again, 3 in a row, nugget number 3. I think we're we're on a roll here, but cultural competence was talked about, hiring internally, but not necessarily having to be I'm paraphrasing Dr. Herr, but not necessarily having to be a certain ethnicity, but it's all about understanding people with different lived experiences than yourself, being open to expanding your horizons so that somebody that's different from you feels embraced by you. And again, that helps to attract and retain, et cetera. So again, very much appreciate that response. We'll pivot to Dr. King right now as well for some words of introduction and to answer that first question also. So welcome, Dr. King, and I'd ask you just to share anything else that you want to about yourself and also answer that same question.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm also excited to be a part of this panel and these wonderful groups of people, of experts from all across our fields of learning. And so I've been in higher education now for about 30 years. That went by fast, right? Been at UW-Whitewater for a little over a year as the chancellor here. For me, our organization, which is the university, our mission and our values all speak to our commitment to diversity and to inclusivity and to belonging, right? So we are about 12,000 students from all spectrums of learning, of all ages. We have students who are first-generation college students, low socioeconomic. We have veterans. We have LGBTQTA+. We have students with disabilities, which speaks to our core mission. We have students that come with different opinions and values and beliefs, all learning from each other in a collective space. And our goal is to provide an inclusive education for those students that they will walk away with the knowledge and the development to go into their respective societies and communities and make a difference.
Excellent. Again, 4 in a row. I just want everybody to know that four nuggets right there about, training the leaders of tomorrow, making sure they have an inclusive foundation that allows them to be able to navigate through life a lot easier than if they were not trained or educated that way. So we certainly, Dr. King, thank you for that answer. Dr. Herr, there's a question in the chat that was directed to you. How do you make sure your new hires, current employees, are culturally competent? And others can chime in. I could certainly jump in on that as well. But Dr. Herr, that was directed to you. So let's go to you for that response.
Wow. Okay. I could say, now this is going to come off as me trying to sell Toward One Wisconsin, but it is what it is. We make sure, I'm very intentional about making sure that our employees are given opportunities to attend trainings and conferences like Toward One Wisconsin, to start with, right? To be able to engage in conversations with others and listening to others of different perspectives, and to gain that training that they need. They don't just have to be opportunities that I provide them, but I certainly encourage them to seek out those opportunities. Now, we are a community development financial institution. Our mission, we're driven by part of our mission, well, should I say, our mission is to serve uplift economically underserved communities. So inherently, that is the work that we do. So the conferences that are really closely related to the work that we do naturally have a bit of that bent in there, so that they understand how to work with the communities that we're supposed to be serving. At least that's the case with us.
And you've got locations really that cover the whole state as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got locations where in like the Wausau area and then up toward Milwaukee. And so you certainly see a lot of different types of diversity. And
Right.
By making sure there's that cultural competence, you're able to certainly have a similar impact wherever you're at as an organization. So again, we appreciate that. There's another question. Somebody else wanted to jump in? Go ahead.
Well, actually, John, I was just going to add that it's not enough. We always have folks who can come in and say, I have background in data analysis, for example, and looking at financials. I've worked in the bank or whatever it might be. But to me, that's just not enough. It has to be someone who understands the mission, the work that we're trying to achieve, and that they are willing to learn that cultural piece of it, understanding the community in which we work in.
Right. So embracing the mission, understanding the mission,
Mhm.
and then being able to put that into action every
That's
day
right.
that they're, the brand ambassadors, so to
Mhm.
speak, for the Hmong Wisconsin chambers. I've seen that in action with your organization, and certainly, at your board level, and we've been blessed to have one of our own on your board, so we're seeing that. There's a couple other questions here coming in, and we can certainly go back to there's some good questions we had listed, but I wanted to make sure that the audience feels embraced and certainly a part of the discussion. This is a little bit of a longer narrative, but I'll get through it fairly quickly. It says, I hear you say that you are intentional and mindful of hiring people who are accepting and willing to work with people with different backgrounds. How do you incorporate this goal mindset into the interview process? What questions do you directly ask interviewees in the hiring process? What do you look for on resumes? For me, I will tell you, and I know all the panelists are chomping at the bit too to answer the question, but I look for a diversity of experience. When you see somebody that's willing to give of themselves and volunteer, put themselves in situations where they may be less than comfortable so that they can develop that resilience of being able to adapt and adjust to different situations. And to hear somebody articulate that in an interview speaks volumes about how they will do in terms of interacting with different customers, different employees, being in different settings where they may not always feel comfortable right away, but they know that because they've done it in the past, that they can adjust and adapt no matter what the situation is. So, but somebody else may want to answer that as well. So anybody at all, because we do have another question in the chat that we could go to.
One thing would be you have to be really intentional yet careful in the interview process. For leaders I've worked with before, using competency-based
Right.
interviewing style and behavior-based interviewing style. And there's a whole section of interview questions that kind of center around valuing differences. So tell me about a time when you had a blend on your team. Tell me about a time where you had to lead a group who had a different background other than you. Tell me about a time where you had your greatest learning. So behavioral-based differences, but understanding where people's core competency is and valuing differences.
Right. No, very good. Very good. Anybody else? All right. We'll go to one of the questions that we had shared ahead of time. And that question is, what strategies do you use for recruiting? What successes has your organization realized, and what challenges and obstacles has your organization faced? What have you learned during the recruiting process? And anybody can answer that. Dr. King, Alan, Dr. Herr, anybody can answer that. Erickajoy.
Well, I guess from my standpoint, John, a lot to unpack there, a lot of questions in there. But from my standpoint, I break it down in recruiting to broad, deep, and authentic. And what I mean by that is you have to be broad in that you have to be out in the community and out in the organizations to make sure you're touching those organizations, schools, whatever the case may be, where you can have an opportunity to recruit diversity successfully. But to do it a mile wide and an inch deep is not of much help. So I think you also have to go deep within organizations, right? It can't be drive-by sort of relationships. You have to really commit to certain relationships, make sure your team is engaged with them, whether that's serving on boards, whether that's economically supporting them, whether that's driving support throughout the organization. And I think you've got to do it in an authentic way, because very quickly people see through if they think you're simply just checking boxes.
Right.
Fortunately for us, for example, even with a couple of the presenters on this panel, I mean, we're fortunate, as you mentioned, John, to be very active with the Hmong Chamber, right? And to take that very seriously. And on the educational side, to work very much with not only the state school system, but private schools as well, to make sure that we really establish long-term, deep relationships. Because again, people smell it very quickly if it's just you're checking a box. So, be broad, but be deep, and above all else, be authentic in your engagement with those organizations, or it won't go anywhere.
Excellent, excellent. And hopefully the 70 folks that are participants, you wrote that down, what Alan Ogilvie just said, broad, deep, and authentic, and he spelled it out. You can build a whole strategy around what just Alan just said. So again, we thank you for that response, Alan. Here's another question in the chat. And again, audience, we're real excited about your participation. The question is, it says, I'm in an inaugural role as a DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion strategist in the government. We're developing the role as I am in it. So they're, riding down the road and in essence, overhauling the car or something like that, if you want to use an example. What advice would you give? So inaugural role, they're working in, in a government entity, and the role is developing as they're faced with, various things that, challenges, et cetera. Who wants to take a stab at that? Dr. King, what do you think about that?
Yeah, and as soon as I'm talking, there's noise happening around me here.
That's what happens.
As you talk about the inaugural role, the one, a couple of things I would want this person to think about. Number one is that you are not alone, right? And so in this role, it is important that the leadership of your organization also speaks to the importance of DEI, and it's part of the organizational structure and fiber, right? You should not be the lone champion in this space. There should be others, right? Number two, you want to make sure that you have the tools you need to do the work and to help the journey, right? And so oftentimes in DEI spaces, which I've been in positions, we often spend a lot of time fighting for resources, and you should never be in a space where you're within an organization that has a position like yours that you're fighting for resources. Resources should be readily available to you, again, speaking to the core mission and values of the organization and to the leadership. And the third piece of advice is to come with your authentic self.
Wow, that's a lot right there. And I was taking notes. I've been taking notes a lot here, but you don't want to be the only person. Is something I heard you say. Leadership also needs to cast that shadow, cascade it down from the very top about DEI, and then make sure you have the right tools, whether it's training, whether it's, on and on. The tools are important, and then be authentic. Bring your authentic self into that space. And one thing I'll tell you is, as we're hearing time and again, each panelist speaks, you can see that they're being authentic. They're living this every day, because if they weren't, the answers wouldn't be the quality that you're hearing as a audience today. So again, we've got the right panelists here for this meeting today. So
John, the only thing I'd like to add on that is I'd suggest that for the individual, you're in essence doing a startup, and enjoy it, embrace it. Don't chase perfection, because you're going to make mistakes. That's okay.
right.
But make the mistakes, fail forward, fail quickly. But enjoy you're doing a startup, but do it realistically, understanding that that means you're not going to get it perfect out of the gate, and that's okay. Now, part of that to me is making sure whoever your constituencies are, if it was a private company, it'd be your board of directors, right?
Right.
Prepare them for imperfection, right? Do not help them understand there will be bumps in the road, because there always are in whatever you're starting up. So, but also just enjoy it. I mean, startups can be some of the most invigorating things in the world. So embrace it and love it.
Wow, excellent. That's good. That's so good. Anybody else have a nugget they want to share? I mean, startups can be good. Go
It made me
ahead.
think of something of just knowing that place of startup is going into this work, give yourself the grace, like Ellen was talking about, and set some clear, manageable expectations up front. Often D&I leaders are asked to, turn around the things that we've inherited that have been the impact of 400 years, and we're asked to fix it in a 40-day plan, right? People want quick wins. It's okay, because then however you start is however people are going to expect you to keep up that pace. So we definitely want the excitement, definitely don't want to be slothful in the role, but recognizing capacity and getting just clear aligned expectations with those who are going to have observations or looking for you to deliver. And just find the data. Get your data first. Find the data of all your gaps, because that always helps you then build your business case of what Dr. King was talking about. When we have to rally for resources, you have a data-based informed proposal of why you need the support. And there are times where you have to start at one. When I started my organization, it was me and I had half a FTE. After 9 years, we grew to, over 100 plus, but it was the data that drove and the data that compelled people.
Data-driven decisions. Give
Absolutely.
yourself grace. Write down some. People want quick wins, but you gotta set your own pace and do things from a qualitative standpoint. So excellent. We're going to go to the another question that we had formed ahead of time, and I'll read the question, and anybody that wants to answer can jump in. Please share practical steps for cultivating, nurturing, and retaining diverse talent, and then feel free to share any examples to reinforce the points that you're making. So, practical steps for cultivating, nurturing, and retaining. So it's not enough to nurture, et cetera, but retaining at your organization. So what practical steps have you seen in that regard? Anybody at all? Well, I'll jump in. Some of the practical things as others are thinking about it is when diverse talent comes in, and it's not always ethnicity. It can be folks that are disabled. It can be veterans. It can be somebody that's just not used to being in a certain geography. They're moving for an opportunity. they have the same experiences that you and I have when we go into a situation and there's a couple hundred people and you don't know anybody. So one of the first things that you can do in order to nurture them is to come alongside of them and say, hey, I see you're new here. Give them practical advice about how to navigate through the organization or wherever you're at. People remember that. I know that in my situation, when I've been new at a certain place, I was new at Church Mutual about 8.5 years ago. I still remember those that the first week I was at the company, those that embraced me. The other thing is, as you see folks that are endeavoring to better themselves, make it clear to them that you can be a resource for them should they need some help. So that could be being an informal mentor. Sometimes that progresses to where you become a sponsor for some individuals, meaning that you help them navigate through their career and give them practical steps that may help them get to and reach their aspirational goals. But again, it's a lot of the things that are common sense types approaches. New person, they probably feel awkward, a sense of they're not comfortable in the space because everybody else seems to know what they're doing, but they're off to the side. Big meetings present opportunities for that. New person comes in, go sit down beside them. Just have a discussion. What do I say? Well, the same things that you'd want somebody else to say to you if you were new. And so, again, some practical helps. Anybody else with a different perspective or maybe a similar?
I'll
Go ahead, Dr. Herr. Yep.
I'll go ahead and jump in. I remember working in a prior position where I did not know, and this is far into my career, I did not know who I can go to inform them, to inform the organization that I had aspirations of, higher leadership, higher leadership roles. And I wasn't sure who I could approach about that until someone else had said to me, I just let our leader know that these are my hopes and aspirations and that this is where I want to go. And I thought, oh, wow, I could do that. So now I guess my advice is, because not everyone's going to know that they could do that and that that's okay. And perhaps, I can't speak for everyone, depending on where you are. Maybe you don't feel very comfortable. You don't feel as though you can go to a leader and say, I want to one day be able to do what you do, for example, right? Or I have aspirations to step into some other leadership positions. I would hope that my employees would feel comfortable enough to tell me that. But I'm going to take the initiative to say, what are your aspirations? What do you want to do? How can I help you get there? And knowing that, I think, takes that responsibility off of them too, to let them know I'm here for them and I want to support them in those endeavors. And always being mindful of that.
Right.
And also as they move along in the organization, if they decide that, it's changed, their direction has changed and they want access to other things or other opportunities, that I leave my door open for them to be able to come tell me that.
All right, excellent. Open door policy, being approachable, getting out and, being with the folks that are getting the work done, letting them know that you've traveled the same road that they're on right now and that you can point the way and it's okay to reach out to you. It seems like that's what you were saying there. Somebody, was it Dr. King? Were you saying something at the same time or something?
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I appreciate all of the nuggets that have been shared in this immediate space. And I would just add, overarching in all of that, I believe a strategy, people want to feel that they matter.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, right? Whatever space they show up in at work, whether it be in person, a hybrid, on a virtual phone call or wherever it may be, I believe they want to know that they're valued and they matter by the organization and by the people within that organization.
Yeah, no, that's so true. That's spot on
Yeah,
right there.
I think that's really important. I think it reminds me of something you said earlier, John, when you were excited about individuals jumping into the chat and you said you want them to be included, because people want their voice to be heard. When looking at how to retain talent, finding out what do they want, having open conversations, whether it's through engagement surveys, or we used to do skip level meetings in one old company I was in, or forums or suggestions on, what do you feel like would help grow the culture with you in it? And getting them part of that co-design to do the work. One company helped them do a ambassador program. So there was an ambassador set up for individuals who are coming to the organization, all the way from their application through their orientation. What are your needs? And then how do you want to connect with leaders? Then they got to connect with leaders. And then he was even as broad as they come into a community. Can we help you and your family, find practical things like a barbershop? Like sometimes
Right.
that, especially in areas where there may not be as much diversity or representation, may be harder to find, certain resources and services that you need. So it's everything from the practical ways to support people and just the fundamental ways of hearing them and understanding their needs.
No, that's very good. That's very good. Anybody else? There's a couple other questions too that we're gonna get to, but I know a lot of the panelists have some great stories about mentors that I think will be powerful to share. I mean, that's in a lot of careers, the mentor is the difference maker in terms of being able to understand broadly the organization, understand how to make a difference, understand what areas of self-development should be focused on, and then to assimilate and being able to work as a team. So the question that I'll ask is, how have mentors made a difference in your professional career? Again, anybody or all. If everybody has a story or something they want to share, we'll go. Everybody can answer that. But how have mentors made a difference in your professional career?
Well, John, from my standpoint, I've been incredibly fortunate to have a couple of mentors that really guided me throughout time. And for me, it's always been important to take a long-term view and don't view it as a transactional relationship. I think that's where I see too many people when they try to establish that relationship like it's transactional. The best mentor I've ever had, was the relationship goes back 30 years now. And I remember when he walked into my office at one point as a young lawyer and told me I was no longer going to practice law, but as I was going to work on some technology related initiatives. And I said I had no idea what he was talking about.
Yeah.
But I trusted him. And you got to find people that you trust and that you can build a long-term relationship with. Because if you want it to be a purely transactional thing that is going to last for 6 months, I would suggest it's not worth it, because you need to build a relationship with somebody where they will tell you the things you don't want to hear.
Right.
Right? There's a lot of mentors who like to do happy talk. But you need those people who will tell it like it is and tell you when maybe you're off, and whether you agree or disagree with them, they're coming from a place of wanting to help you, and they're doing it with nothing but the best of intentions. So it's an incredibly important long-term relationship that hopefully both parties choose carefully.
That's good. That's real good. I wrote down a few things. It's not a transactional relationship, or don't view it as a transactional relationship. Somebody that you trust and you can build a long-term relationship, and somebody that's not engaging in happy talk. I mean, that's really good right there. Somebody that'll tell you if you're wrong and explain that they're doing it, with the best interest of you at heart. So, very good, very good. Thanks, Alan. Anybody else with a thought, a nugget, something you want to share about mentors?
I think they're invaluable. I mean, mentors are a place to help you with your self-awareness, a good mentor. And I think you're right, Alan, just you got to make it a very meaningful relationship. If you seek a mentor, though, be a prepared mentee, be a be a very proactive mentee, an intentional mentee, maximize your mentor's time. But for me, my mentors have been, I've been very careful to select a very diverse pool of mentors, like backgrounds, not like me, because I want to see blind spots. You know, that's one of the biggest challenges as people grow in leadership are blind spots, and mentors help you. They're like that rear view mirror to help you to see what you're about to run into or that you need to avoid. When they're really honest with you. I've been very, very fortunate. I've had a mentor now. She was my mentor in college.
Okay.
I'm in my 50s, so she has not let go of me yet. And to the point where she challenges me, she encourages me, she celebrates me, but it's just the honesty in a mentor to be your calibrator and to help you reconcile, you know, issues and gaps and find ways to creatively grow.
Oh yeah. No, that's real good. Mentors are invaluable. You challenge mentees to be prepared, you know, not just to show up,
Absolutely.
but have somewhat of an agenda, I guess you're saying, some items for discussion or things you're working on. And
Yeah.
diversity is important, is another
Yeah.
diverse pool of mentors, and use the mentor as the rear view mirror so you can, you know, avoid some things that may be overtaking you, etc. So good, very good.
It can grow as a relationship. Another mentor I had, he was a white male CFO. He has
Mm-hmm.
since retired. And he just last week, he still, hey, I read this article about you, but what are you doing with this? You know,
Yeah.
and what became really enriching, I think, which really bonded our relationship, is that he sought out from me things that he wanted to learn, you know.
Okay.
So it definitely became a mutually beneficial relationship. And when I saw that, it actually spurred me to be more transparent with him, you know,
Right.
my sharing and my asking and my support. And so it just became a really enriching relationship.
Excellent. Excellent. Anybody else about the mentors?
Yeah,
I Go
I
ahead,
wanted
Dr.
to
King.
comment on Alan's comment as
Go
well
ahead.
with the word transactional. Just a simple point that a good mentor takes you from transactional to transformation. And so whatever your experience is with your mentor-mentee relationship, it should always end in a transformational space. And I think that, you know, that's important. And then the last point, my colleague, Dr. Daniels, I don't know if it's Dr. Daniels or not, my colleague said, when you engage mentors and mentees, it is a shared learning experience. And it should be two ways, right? A two-way street. So I echo both of those comments and nuggets.
Great. Excellent. Um, I can share as well. I don't want to jump in front of you, Dr. Herr, about the mentors. So I'll defer to you, ladies first, certainly.
Yeah, I think I feel as though my fellow panelists here have really said what was most important already. If you don't mind, I'd like to just add this too. You know, someone I didn't expect to be a mentor, but I think was very well aware of me being in a space, and then really just nudging me. I'll never forget this, and I share this story a lot with those around me when I'm on a panel, something like this. Is just being someone who's and maybe this is more along the lines of being an ally of some
Mm-hmm.
kind, but just being able, and not even knowing they're your ally, but just being able to nudge you and say, you know what, this is your space. This is
Right.
where you can speak up. This is where talk about this, because I know that you have some expertise in this, right? So I'm not really answering your question, John, but
No, you are. You are. This is good. Yeah.
in this conversation, I can't help but think about that moment that really surprised me. It was a pleasant surprise, but to have someone really advocate for me in that way, on a personal level, not out loud, but really nudging me and said, you need to say something, right?
Right.
This is your space. Not that I should feel like I have to have that permission, but sometimes we do. We need that little bit of a nudge from those around us. So not necessarily, like I said, answering that mentor question, but I do think it's an important piece of, I guess, an extended part of this conversation.
No, I think that's very good. I mean, mentors can help you develop your voice, if you will. I know in my, I'm still in formative years, but when I was a lot younger, 30 years ago, a little over 30 years ago, when I really had my first mentor, I was a junior in college at the university. And at that time, I was a different person. I felt like I had, social life was but top priority. I was certainly studying, but my the guy I met from a large insurance company, he talked to me for about 45 minutes at a career fair, and he was explaining to me that you're not going to be a junior all the time. You're going to be going out into the workforce. You should be thinking about, at this time, it was an unpaid internship. He said, think about taking this unpaid internship because you're going to need a strategy, but not only that, some skills to compete. And so I thought about my world as it was, and that mentor helped me to change my perspective about, hey, there's life after, undergrad. And we still keep in touch even today. He's retired. He's in his 70s, and he's still telling me like it is. So to Alan's point earlier, the happy talk was something that he wasn't doing the happy talk with me. He's like, hey, you're young, but you're going to have to earn a living. And he was willing to tell me straight up that the way you're going, yeah, you're going to graduate and you're going to do well in terms of your grades, but to get ahead of the thousands and thousands of other folks that are doing the same thing you are, you need this internship. And made a difference in my own life. So we have some other questions here that I want to pivot to. And here's one that says, this is a Leah Cross, I believe. After hire, how do you incorporate this value of diversity, equity, and inclusion into performance reviews and growth within the college? It's one thing to recruit, retention of employees is another. So they're talking about in academia, Dr. King, really kind of directed toward you. I hate to put you on the spot, but how do you cultivate that environment? How do you shape the culture there at the university level?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. So on the university level, you're surrounded by faculty and staff and administrators. And the one thing that's very important is all of that is centered around a common mission and outcome. And for us, it's student success. So every faculty, staff, administrator in our space knows that we have one common goal, and that is the success of our students. And so that's important, and we need to cultivate that. And understanding, though, the university also must recognize that faculty, staff, administrators must be in a space where they are valued, where they feel that they matter, where there is flexibility of the workplace, where there is a focus on their mental health and their well-being, that we do our best to help them understand that it is when our faculty, staff, and administrators are at their best. It is when we are in an environment where we cultivate well-being and we share common interests that we do better for our students. And so for me, every day, having to cultivate an environment where student success is our priority and being there for our faculty, staff, and administrators to know that they have a chancellor and they have a university leadership to make sure that happens, at the end of the day, that's where it is.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Keeping the student success is kind of the North Star that everybody's driving towards, and everything flows into that. I believe, Dr. Herr, you're answering a question that you may be able to answer live, perhaps, from Jessica Scharfenberg. What are your thoughts on the approach of cultural humility versus cultural competence? And I see you're answering that. Maybe you could share that with them as well.
Sure, you're right. I was in the middle of typing to them as I was listening. I was just going to say, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I feel as though they're two sides of the same coin. I think to develop cultural competency means, and of course, there's different thoughts about cultural competency, the use of that. There's no perfect term. I'll just say that. But in order to develop that, there has to be a healthy level of humility, to understand someone else's experiences and what they're telling you, understanding that you may not have all the experiences or knowledge about someone or something. Just having that ability to listen and to learn, I think builds that cultural competency. So I was just going to say something along those lines in my response to them. There's so much to say about that, but I'll stop there.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody else? Any other thoughts on that? There's another question from Andrea Fox. And the question is, who do all of you network with regarding DEI in the workplace? I work closely with community organizations, which is helpful when trying to understand what the community needs, but I would really like to find a group of professionals in a similar DEI role as mine that I can ask questions and share ideas with. Anybody at all? I know that years ago, somebody introduced me to a couple organizations that I'm still a part of. One is and everybody can pick their own organizations, but I happen to be a member of the National African American Insurance Association. And roughly about twice a year, the executive director will send out a webinar invite or a Zoom invite for like 40 or 50 of the diversity leaders that represent, that are in the organization, but represent various companies. And we've developed somewhat of a camaraderie, a rapport that way. There are also, for those, and I know most folks that are, in professional roles are on LinkedIn. There are also some groups on LinkedIn that are similar to that. And so the networking has been invaluable to me, because as we've looked at various strategies over time, whether it's been at Church Mutual or some other organization in my past life, when I've been up against something that was very new and different for me, I had a group of folks that I could reach out to, and they could help point the way. So again, some of these organizations you may or may not be aware of, but anybody else have a thought there?
I dropped a few in the response, I think, but other thing too is when finding those like minds when you're in forums like this, whether or not they're webinars or if there are events that you can go to as you continue to grow and sharpen the skills around diversity, equity, inclusion. And, as people say, finding your people, right? Finding those like-minded or not so like-minded, just like determined people. I think really the phrase I love to use, like determined people that you can learn from and balance from. And for me, one thing that was really important was getting out of the same thing I was challenging leaders when it comes to not getting comfortable with proximity. Who in my space or in my circles was from a background, whether it's industry, ethnicity, or understanding that was different than me, that I didn't have enough learning myself, right? And creating those relationships to connect and to grow made all the world of a difference. But there are different, like you said, John, different associations. There's a organization called CEO Action. It's a pledge, a CEO pledge that's run by EY. And they've created these industry groups and these industry circles. They meet regularly, and they're bouncing off challenges with each other and helping understand opportunities and solutions and different initiatives that can be done. And they're making a difference because those connections are not only making an impact within the businesses, but they're making an impact in the individuals who are leading the work within the business.
Absolutely. And to put a plug out there for Toward One, there's a lot of folks that I've met professionally, because Church Mutual was one of the inaugural group that was helping to form this conference, and there's folks that I've kept in touch with since 2018 and 19, and expect I'll be in touch with them for years to come. So again, it's I like that what you said, Erickajoy. Like determined. It doesn't have to be like-minded, but like determined. We're fast approaching the top of the hour with 5 minutes left, so I wanted to call out the time, and so we're getting close to where we'll probably see if the panelist has any closing thoughts or anything they want to leave the audience with. I do want to mention that I'm planning to hang on for about 15 minutes after the top of the hour, and we'll do my best to answer some more questions. But I also want to be cognizant that this is your lunch hour, and like we started out saying, the lunch doesn't last, forever. But it's top of the hour. Some of you have other things on your schedule, so now we're at 4 minutes to go. So why don't we pivot to the panelists for anything that they would like to leave the audience with, and at least the person that's front and center on my screen is Dr. Herr right now. So anything you want to leave the audience with here, Dr. Herr?
What I was thinking about at the end there when Erickajoy was speaking is I love that too, like determined. I think about the board that I have. We're a nonprofit. I have people of different political views on my board. Just like, I imagine there are going to be different people with different views, political views, for example, that are going to be coming to Toward One Wisconsin conference. And at the end of the day, it's about what are we trying to achieve? What is our end goal? And coming with a willingness to listen, to one another. And if it means negotiating or listening to one another to come to some sort of understanding, I think is most important of all. And that's true with my own board. And I believe that's going to be true, with those who come to Toward One Wisconsin or really anywhere, any situation. As long as there's a willingness to listen to one another, ask the questions, engage in those conversations, then we can move forward.
Excellent. Excellent. Why don't we pivot to you, Alan, for any thoughts you may have and anything at all. We certainly appreciate your attendance today and participation.
Just appreciate the opportunity, and my only final thought is that as different practitioners and different people work in this important area, that they please give themselves, I think Erickajoy put it best, a little grace, because at the end of the day, while an incredibly important journey all of this is, it will not be a straight line. So you just have to, prepare yourself for a long journey, a worthwhile one, but just give yourself, again, grant yourself a little grace as you're on this journey.
Excellent. Excellent. And thank you, Alan. Why don't we pivot to you, Erickajoy, as well, for any thoughts you would have as we get ready to wind up.
I would definitely say this is a long haul work. Absolutely stay curious though. Stay curious, open, and ready to learn and listen. That way you can be better positioned to give solutions even when you don't have all the answers.
Okay. Very good. Very good. And Dr. King, we're going to throw it over to you now for any closing thoughts.
Yeah. Thank you for this. 3 points I'll bring out on this wonderful journey. Number one, we're gonna end up in not number one, but we're gonna end up in one of three spaces. You're gonna either, number one, agree to disagree, agree to agree, or agree that more information is needed to make informed decisions. So one of those spaces you're gonna end up with, right? You're gonna agree to agree, you're gonna agree to disagree, or you're going to agree that more information is required for you to make an informed decision. So if you're ending up in one of those spaces, then you're on a good path and a good journey.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. And I want to thank each panelist for taking the time out of their very busy schedules. These are all C-suite panelists. These are positions that most people aspire to get to. And a lot of practical strategies have been shared, mentorship, being open to various ethnicities, giving yourself grace, realizing it's not going to be done in a day. So again, a big thank you to all the panelists, and we're going to formally close the webinar right now. But and so for those that need to drop off, that's fine. But I'll try to answer some of these other questions as well. So again, thank you, panelists, and we appreciate your time and investment here today. Okay. We'll start back up in about a minute to get folks a chance to exit out, and then I'll try to answer some more questions. Okay.
I'm actually departing. Thank you all very much for this opportunity.
Thanks, Dr. King. Appreciate you.